I'll never turn, I'll never bend. I'm with you now until the end.
Good evening, welcome to Conspiracy Cafe. I'm your host, George Freund. I'm with you now, I'm with you to the end, and we're making sure the end is going to be a little bit longer than the New World Order anticipates, because we're here, we're screaming mad, we're telling the world what's going on, we're making some changes, we're making a difference, and we're doing that here because you changed the channel, and you're at that channel here in downtown Toronto, the one and only place where you can have an alternative news and views, and even way beyond that. Sometimes it's hard to believe that a week goes by and you come up with new things that just shake your tail feathers until you fall out of the tree. It's just that amazing. But it is that amazing. So that's what maybe we have to put an addendum to the song where we don't have nothing. Yes, we have something. We got you. And that's important. And you got me, and that's important. So we got everything we need that God gave us, each other. Because that's something the New World Order or just our leaders, they just don't seem to understand that there are natural, irrefutable laws of the universe, and they're all the same. They describe them in many different ways. The scientists will come up with Newton's law, and they'll say for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. God's law will say something like, as you sow, so shall you reap. It's the same. Just said differently, but it's the same. All falls under what I call the law of unintended consequences, because sometimes you just put a foot forward, something happens, you fall flat on your butt. For every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So all our leaders are all primed and ready to go to just disturb the fabric of space with the next crisis, the next war, not having the slightest understanding of the basic principles of how the laws of the universe work. And they're in charge. Would you get in an airplane, you know, and the pilot's looking around? Wonder what this button's for. Wonder what this button does. Boy, I wish I knew what that dial meant. Think you get off. You definitely wouldn't put the guy in charge. You go to the operating room, the surgeons are looking at all these tools. Wonder what this one's for. Wonder what you could possibly do with this. Ooh, that one looks like it would hurt. You get out of there, fast. Then we have our leaders going like, ooh, somebody's got weapons of mass destruction. Let's go over here. Let's nuke this. Let's fight here. Let's attack there. They have no idea what they're doing and what the return consequences will be. That equal and opposite reaction coming back at you. So you think, hey, it's a piece of cake. I'm going into Afghanistan. Smack! Knock them on their ass. They're just nothing but sand fleas. But after all these years, we're coming home with our tail between their legs, not theirs. Because you didn't understand the law of unintended consequences. You didn't understand God's law either, because as you sowed, so have you reaped. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Now you did this again in Iraq. Schmack! You got to go home again with your tail between your legs, because you just don't understand these irrefutable laws. Now you want to go do it again, and this time hit something bigger and stronger, with maybe more repercussions, because this law of unintended consequences may hit some of the other partners. It's like I do target practice down here at Bay and Dundas. You know, oh yeah, sure, I can have the best intentions in the world, and something ricochets off a stone and kills somebody 50 meters down the road. Because it's just not a safe place to do it. It's not a good, safe place on this planet Earth with these irrefutable laws to be going around and pushing all kinds of force that you have absolutely no understanding of. It's like pulling the pin on a grenade in your pants pocket and letting it explode. It's insane. But that's our leaders. They're insane. John Lennon said it. They're insane. The good news is, as one of our very close researchers has pointed out to us, there is a tipping point for the spread of ideas, and it has finally arrived. So a lot of people who study media and look at the numbers are coming up that you only need about 10% of the population to understand what's going on so that the bullshit doesn't work anymore. That's pretty good. And I recall reading many long years ago in the 30s when they tried all this crap big time as well. It was kind of like 10% for the New World Order, 10% against the New World Order, and a big mosh pit in between that just couldn't tie their own shoelaces. And the good guys won out because we have to do it again. And I'm pretty optimistic the good guys will win out too, because what they found in these studies is if you have irrefutable ideas, the herd will follow you. So as we build our numbers up to that 10% factor of irrefutable, unmovable, that's it, baby. Barbecue my ass, but I'm not changing my mind, because we know that the New World Order is wrong, and we know that individual liberty is right, and we understand the laws of the universe and how they apply to us. Irrefutable, immovable, we win. Unfortunately, Comrade Hitler said it in a somewhat similar fashion, that an unmovable minority can always rule the majority. So I guess he knew all those things too. So nothing is new. It's always the same old stuff, just regurgitated. And it don't hurt to read the enemy's playbook too. Sometimes they have some knowledge and understanding of the greater things in life, whether they're on either side of the tracks. Because is there really a right or is there really a wrong? With all the lies and propaganda going around, we never get to find out. Really, it takes a lot of time to peel it off. We had a big peeler coming around, still going around the world selling his war, Benjamin Netanyahu. He come to Canada, he's come to the United States. Now he's going to other countries to probably tell them the magic day, the magic hour of when this is going to happen. So in his meeting with Obama, they come up with a story which could be true, might not be true. It sounds logical, but you don't want your enemy to know when you're going to attack you. So you don't call Iran or allow Iran to read the newspaper and say, it's this day and this time. Ooh, okay. They'll be ready for you. You want them to think it's another day and another time. So some of the things we'll see in mainstream media we have to accept as that being the other day and other time. So one of the big ones is, of course, they don't want to do it right now. They can't wait too much longer. So they say that they're going to wait till after the election, and then Obama is going to allow Israel, or maybe participate with Israel, to attack Iran. So that'll put it towards the very end of the year, closer to that 2012 doomsday scenario. That should be a political slogan. Vote for me, and we'll disappear before the end of 2012. Because I'm the Mayan Party. The hell with the Democrats. The hell with the Republicans. Vote Mayan. I'll get it done. I'm a good follower of the Antichrist. Are you, Mr. Obama? Will that be your campaign slogan? You'll be the Duke Nukem of the modern age, casting aside all the peacemakers, all the great men of history, just so that you can be, one of those like crazed generals in Dr. Strangelove or something like that. Good job, sir. Good job. So he promised, he said, that he'll give all the bunker busters that he can bust bunkers with to Israel so that they can give Iran a good black eye. Or is that what they want us to believe? As we worked on our Google code before we got here, we find out maybe the day is a little sooner. As the Bible code said, when Obama does this election, if they follow through with their attack plans, he'll be doing his, not necessarily campaigning, but some aspects of the election and swearing in ceremonies in his nuclear bunker. So how can we say that? Well, the Bible says that. Behold, the day of the Lord is coming, and your spoil will be divided in your midst. For I, God, will gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem. I wonder whose team they're on. Jerusalem. Well, that's Netanyahu's team. So either they're doing it on purpose, which is weird, because Obama's nothing but an Antichrist commie anyway. I don't even know if he could spell the word religion, and his idea of God probably has horns on it. So that can't be it. But they're going to do it anyway. Or like we said last week, the whole plot comes from this Albert Pike. It's a satanic Luciferian plot to pit real religious people, Muslim, Christian, and Jew, and even atheists, and get us to all fight and eliminate each other as much as possible, and they come in as the cleanup crew and have a happy new world order. Great strategy. You have to admire it. It is great strategy. You never use your own to fight. You use all the ones that hate you to fight each other. Because the Muslim, the Christian, the Jew, maybe the atheist, probably aren't so keen about Lucifer, because if the atheists don't believe in God, I don't think they believe in the devil, or they shouldn't. So they all don't believe in this. They're not devotees in any way, shape, or form. They're all on the opposite side of the fence, but they're all willing to kill each other so that you can take the field. Amazing strategy. The USS Enterprise is all loaded up, heading over for its Persian excursion. It's its last voyage. No pun intended, it is its last voyage. It's supposed to retire. A lot of people have been saying that it's going to do more than retire. It's going to kind of explode and sink to the bottom of the briny deep. That remains to be seen. Of course, like all the other nuclear aircraft carriers, it has a formidable array of aircraft that can lay waste to good portions of the planet Earth. And probably like every carrier task force, you have to anticipate that it's storing nuclear weapons. That's just a given. So if it really gets hot and horny, they can just vaporize almost anything if they so desire. One of the better editorials that came my way is "America Gone Stupid Over Iran," an analysis by Dr. Lawrence Davidson. I'd have to agree with him. Basically, the synopsis of this is faulty intelligence was the basis of George Bush's decision to invade Iraq. This is almost like a disease to use faulty intelligence. Really, it's not intelligence at all. Not even close. So there was no yellow cake back in the day. The intelligence agencies are supposed 16 intelligence agencies. They pay a lot of money for those 16 U.S. intelligence agencies. Like, that's probably almost the whole alphabet when you string them all out. They say, reconfirmed in mid-February 2012 by an array of top U.S. intelligence chiefs appearing before the Senate Intelligence Committee. So if you think the Senate's got some intelligence, that's probably an oxymoron, but they do have a committee. And these guys show up there and, you know, yes, sir, I swear, sir, 3 bags full, sir, that this is the way it is. And they're saying stuff that doesn't really go with the flow. So that's probably got to be true. So what kind of intelligence are they taking that says, we don't go with what all these guys say, we do something else? Well, that's a very simple kind of intelligence. It's called a briefcase. It's not like a suitcase nuke. It's got like some of those Fed notes in it or something, lots of them, big denominations. And you get to carry that to Switzerland or Panama or whatever floats your boat, where you keep your Swiss bank accounts. You're off the record funds, and that's your intelligence. You got bought. You're a whore. All our leaders are whores. That's a given. That's your intelligence. We're either going to make something out of this, or we've been bought off. Or the other part is, for some of the probably relatively faithful, is you're blackmailed. And they own your soul. They do the same thing like some of the German intelligence chiefs did in World War II. That's how they kept alive. They got pictures of, you know, so-and-so with his pants down here or there. Keeps you alive. You know all the family secrets. Same thing happens. J. Edgar Hoover built the FBI on this type of behavior. Bugged everything. Even the bed bugs were probably bugged. So he's got everything on everybody. As we said in previous shows, he kept the biggest porn collection on the planet Earth. So that was a business deal. It wasn't for personal use. Just took 20 or 30 trucks to cart it away. But he owned all their souls, and he does that too with all the people in Congress. If they even dare try to do anything for those dregs called we the people, then that suitcase comes out. We got this, we got that, we got this, we got that. So I don't think looking at my bare ass is worth killing 1 million people, because that's like a minimum of what's going to die in the next war. I had to shuffle down a whole lot of beans and say, hey, you want to come near me? Here, a couple of pickled eggs, a little beer. Have a look, buddy. If you get away alive, you're a better man than most people. But I'll be damned I'm going to sell out We the People. I'll be damned I'm going to let 1 million people go to their graves. Even if the whoremonger media on the professional side wants to gang up on you and kick you around a little bit, you got to stick with what you believe in. Starting some kind of unnecessary war for profit or the advantage of whoever just isn't good enough. Because this whoremonger media, the corporate media, like I say, they're so bad. It's just like, you know, when you're 3 years old, right, and you're in, you know, your primary painting class and you got paint all over your fingers and you're wishing it around all over the place. It's as good as it gets, right? Mommy's proud of you. You come home, they hang that on the wall. And you get a little older and you do a little more and a little more and a little more. But once you get to the point where, you know, you paint masterpieces that can be hung in the Louvre, you look at some of the other stuff and you go, needs a lot of improvement. And it's like that with the media. When we see what the real truths are, and then we look at what they tell us, and you see how bad it is. I mean, it's like barf bad. I forced myself, you know, recently to pick up a couple of newspapers. I don't do that anymore because you get your fingers black, but, you know, it's crap. Of course your fingers should get black. It's unbelievable how bad it is. The lies. They can't even scratch the surface in a story. So the Toronto Star did a big thing because the Titanic's coming up, and we're going to show a little Titanic clip and do, you know, little chippets of a really great documentary on the Titanic and conspiracy, and just as an educational tool to see how it all plays out, because it's the same game plan, just different events. And when you see the evil, then you know. So I read this thing in the newspaper, you know, oh wow, it's about the Canadians who were on the Titanic. Oh yeah. Didn't tell me anything. He said, you know, this guy's a Canadian, that guy's a Canadian, this guy's a Canadian, that guy's a Canadian, and the boat sank. Oh. So out of the 5 days, you know, the first day was, well, they weren't too happy with Captain Smith. They didn't think he was competent to command the ship. Okay, that's a given. And then it's just fluff. And then at the end they say, oh, well, you know, they kind of mismatched the crew. Okay. When you see the documentary I'm going to show you over the next few weeks, mishmash the crew, that's the best you can do. These guys, amateurs, put together something that it just makes you fall over. So I hate watching some of that stuff late at night. I watch the first one and then it's like, well, I guess I'm not going to bed. Got to see all the parts. I know how it turns out. The ship sinks, but the devil in the details is just absolutely spellbinding. And that's how they work. So how does our big corporations work? This is our Google guy here. He did the Google code, the origami code. Turns out the guy who does the Google code is an origami artist. And he's a rocket scientist. Worked for NASA. So Akira Yoshizawa is the dedication, and his birthday March 14th, his date of death as well, March 14th. The man behind the Google code is Robert J. Lang, renowned physicist, mathematician, guy who makes lasers, cutting edge inventions, editor of a publication called the Journal of Quantum Electronics. And that ain't downstairs at the local store, let me assure you. That's for the eggheads of eggheads. So he gives up working for NASA, the military-industrial complex, the ultimate scammers, because I doubt if they went to the moon or did any of this other stuff, they just stole our money. And then something I found out today that I'll work on for tomorrow, but you see, Google's one of the richest companies in the world, right? Google gets landing rights at NASA's airbase, and you, the US taxpayer, the we the people guy. We, really we, small. Maybe they think, maybe it's Scottish. They think we means small people, so you take advantage of them, as opposed to the accumulated us, we the people. They buy the fuel for their private jets. And they bought a whole bunch more, because if you don't have to pay for the fuel, you can afford to fly them suckers. Can you believe that? There's supposed to be like a study going on with NASA, because the Google Doodle guy used to work there, and now that's like a conflict of interest. And they're paying for all the fuel so these guys can buzz around the planet. So when Mr. Lang went to Japan for the anniversary of the Google Doodle artist Akira Yashizawa, guaranteed he was probably flying in a Google jet, guaranteed you, the taxpayer, hung by the neck, strung out, bailing out every billion-dollar corporation you can find, we're paying for the fuel. Like, what's that old song? We played that once. If I had a rocket launcher, that son of a bitch should be dead. So our dude here, I guess my picture disappeared again. Isn't that funny? See, I think he's watching, you know, because I put this picture with the origami art from his book on the website twice, and I see it's gone again. So I guess he's taken it away again. But I saved a copy, so I should be able to get it back there again. Oh well, we'll have to skip that part. But one of his creations, of course, is the Revelation frog, the green frog. But we can make a frog. Doesn't mean like he's trying to participate in the revelation and destroy the planet Earth. But conveniently, while he's there, in Japan, they have the big earthquake. So the first thing I do in the morning is I want to read about the earthquake. So I go to the Google page, I open the Google page, and then I look at the map of the, look for the map of the earthquake, and I see, well, there's a Google Doodle. Oh, okay. So I'm going, now I got two things to do. It turns out it's only one, because maybe they're related. So if we show this image here of the little map, we see this bank or big trench here off Japan. This is where the earthquake happened. Part A here, little point. 6.9 magnitude off the coast of Honshu, Japan, roughly at 9:03 a.m. on the 14th. And we see this little arc here that comes out to Tokyo, which is where our buddy Akira was roughly born and died. And we see Fukushima here in the middle. So I never knew this, but when you do origami art, like this is high-end art, there's 7 mathematical axioms, and you don't want to look at like 5, 6, and 7. I'm telling you, the math there is just going to knock your socks off unless you got a few degrees. But we just picked a simple one. This is the second axiom. Given 2 points, P1 and P2, there is a unique fold in the middle. So that looks just like our little piece off Japan. It's just mirror image. It's reverse. You see the little thing, 2 points, the axiom through the middle goes to Fukushima. Fukushima. Never heard of that place before. So then, one of his famous ones, and I picked this out before I broke the code, I just thought, well, that's the only one that's really different, is the Assyrian Bull. This was in a Chicago piece of media, the link's there, unless they took that away too. But he's a Caltech trained physicist and engineer, used origami theory in his projects, from automobile airbag design, the space telescope prototype. He's developed 500 compositions, including his box-pleat rendition of the Oriental Institute's Assyrian Bull, a human-headed winged bull that guarded King Sargon II. And I get the feeling if there's a King Sargon III, our Google guys are right in there. So when we look at the very beginning, I guess we got to go back before we go there. One of the other things that's just so simple about the code, and even after I started to write a lot of this stuff, there had to be a significance to the butterflies on the various letters. So you got 4 butterflies, G-O-L-E. Don't mean anything to me, because I'm Canadian. Speak English mostly. Don't know much about Sargon and the Assyrians and all that sort of thing. I was thinking more along the line of the butterfly effect. But then I figured I better use that Google for some looking. Because Gole, G-O-L-E, is part of a very famous Iranian holiday. So then I find this. This is it. This big holiday celebrated for more than 2,500 years. That's got a lot to say. I had to learn some new words. This 6-tier Ma don't mean nothing to me. Start going through Iranian calendars and such like that. They got lots of them. And sometimes you got to speak in 4 or 5 languages to even begin to understand them. So I was really sweating. But then fortunately I just went to the original website where I found this, and they had another posting with a simple translation where they tell us that Tir Ma is July. It's also the anniversary of a famous Iranian freedom fighter. Ooh, freedom fighters. Ooh, yes, we can use a few of those on this planet nowadays. So seemingly, this chap, Babak Khorramdin, is celebrated on a regular basis. Looks like a pretty tough dude. You wouldn't want to mess with him in a dark alley, especially when that sword comes out. But they kicked out their occupiers, became free. Sounds like a good model for the world. Be free. Now, this one's more like a happy flower festival or something, but it's 6-tier Ma, 6 July. So our goal from the Google code, 4 butterflies, takes us to 6-tier Ma, 6th of July. Is that the day? As Mr. Netanyahu said, it's not going to be days, but it's not going to be years. Well, that doesn't leave us a whole lot left. It's either weeks or months. And probably not weeks. So 6th of July is a good day tactically, for several reasons. It's a holiday. You always want to get your enemy while he's sleeping. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. So while the Iranians are holding their flowers and walking up a wall to go see Zargon, it's a good time to let them have it. Also comes after the 4th of July, so the Iranians aren't going to be paying too much attention to the massive flow of Americans going all over the place because it is their holiday. So you could probably move a lot of things surreptitiously around. And the beauty of it is, everybody's going to go out and blow firecrackers in the air and get drunk and not even think for a second that World War III is going to start or something like that. So you got everybody exactly where you want them. Makes it a perfect time for the attack, if that is. Now the downside is, if we're right, or even close to right, then somebody somewhere is kicking himself going, curses, foiled again, they figured it out. But that's one of those other laws of the universe too, as we talked about the butterflies and the butterfly effect. These forces can carry on with great significance. So we may intend to just say, we're just going to blow up their underground bunkers. And because you're bad, you should accept that to say, yeah, I was bad, yeah, I was making nukes in the basement and you guys blew them up and that's okay by me now. As if that's going to happen. It's just like you took the Tasmanian devil out of a can and it's just going to come at you 6 ways from Sunday. Because in that country, they still accept Mr. Khorramdin as a way of life, just like Americans would probably look at some of their founding fathers as, you know, we have not yet begun to fight. John Paul Jones. As heroes. And when you're right up against the wall, say if Iran invaded the United States, you'd probably think back to guys like that and say, no, remember the Alamo. We're not giving this up. They're going to fight like the Tasmanian devil. That's one thing I can assure you is our people are not fighters much anymore. Yeah, we may have a few thousand or something like that. That's it. So when we went to places like World War I or something, you could probably say, well, collectively we had millions of fighters because people were tough. Our women were tougher than most of our soldiers. So they had to settle and build this country with hard manual labor, a knowledge of tools. They could hunt. Nowadays we're just, you know, your little kid draws a picture of a gun in school and the cops take you down. And it's an imaginary thing, the imaginary gun to kill monsters, it's all imaginary. But we shit our pants so fast that, you know, everybody's calling family services and the police And they arrest this guy because his kid drew a picture of a gun in school. She's only 4 years old. Now you got the nerve to want to go to Iran and pick a fight with people that clean you and gut you with a dull knife and skin you alive and bake you on the hot sun. Not even blush. Not a good move. So we're referred by our defense minister here. I saw him in the paper today, forget which one, when I got my hands dirty looking at the garbage, saying, we're gonna, we're in a position when this happens, we can defend Canada. With what? If there's infiltrated Iranians all over the place, with what? How who's guarding the infrastructure? Not that I want to turn the place into an armed camp or anything like that, but who's doing it? Well, I'll tell you one thing, not enough. Not anywhere close. And some of the few that are, well, they'll be changing their underwear real fast. Even some of the ones, like, it's okay for our coppers to go around and beat up a whole bunch of helpless people on the G20 day. They got 1,000 Islamic holy warriors to deal with. Yeah, maybe the TAC units can handle that for about 10 minutes till they run out of ammo. I think most of the rest of them will be heading for the hills. Because they like hurting. They just ain't got no guts to do what's right. They got no moral courage to say, I'll lose an arm for my country and my community. I'll catch that grenade and throw it back. No, it's all money. Well, there ain't no way you can pay me enough to catch AK-47 rounds for an hour. It's got nothing to do with payment. You had to do it because it was the right thing to do. So when you go down University Avenue and you look at all these monuments of all our fallen soldiers, the lead was flying worse than mosquitoes in the Great White North up here. Let me assure you. Shrapnel, bullets, poison gas. We ain't got those kind of guys anymore. The thought police made them all disappear. You don't even want to form a thought that you're tough or you're strong. You just have to submit, submit, submit. Well, I can guarantee you, when the Islamic holy warriors come out, they ain't even going to ask you to submit. Unless you catch too many of their bullets. And say, well, gee, that wasn't fair. That guy took 30. And I had to put another clip in my gun. Damn. So this is what we're going to do. I remember, I like military history, read a lot of stuff. I can just imagine, if I go down here in Toronto and I cut all your intestines out, throw them on the ground, how far are you going to run after that? Our guys in World War I would just pick them up, hold them back in a little bit, and advance across the battlefield with their rifle. And a little pointy thing on the end called a bayonet. I said that out loud once, and people are looking at me like I come from the moon, didn't know what it was. So that's that little knife they put on the end of the rifle. It's called a bayonet. So you don't even know what that is, but you're going to go and start a big fight with another country. Albert Pike, you don't need to do too much, baby, because we don't have anybody or anything that can even think or contemplate about it. So a bad day for some people might be, you got a hangnail. You got to go in for therapy and go to the hospital emergency ward. Tough? I don't think we got tough anymore. So we got a few of our, soldiers that are tough, a few of our cops that are tough, a few other people that are tough, but I'd have to say 99.9% of us are all pussies. Not that that's a bad thing. I believe in peace. But if you can't field strip your rifle in the dark in a few seconds flat, you don't know how to throw a grenade, don't go looking to start a fight with somebody who can, because you're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt real bad. And the next time you come home with your tail between your legs, maybe somebody's going to follow you going like, they're all a bunch of pussies. Let's go over there and take over their country. Screw fighting in our country. So somebody's also wrote in a piece, The Plot to Destroy the United States. It's an old one. Gordon Duff. And he looked at the whole concept of how this false intelligence, trying to set up a false flag operation, only had one determined conclusion. That was to destroy the United States and its currency, which is probably some of the effects that's going to come out of this war if they get to it. something you can look for. We just probably don't have the time to go into it in too great a detail. But it's one of those law of unintended consequences, the equal and opposite reaction, the as you sow, so shall you reap. So let's think of some of the consequences here. Because we've got to pay for this. We don't have any money, so we borrow it. Social Security, goodbye. Pensions, goodbye. Medicare, Medicaid, goodbye. Tax increases, up to your neck. Schools, shut down. Military and veterans pensions, cut. Military pay, cut. Police state, yes. You didn't expect that when you went there. You didn't expect, so I'm going to bust a bunker and I'm going to lose my pension. No, you didn't say that. You didn't think that would happen. Because you just didn't think. And these false flag operations, like how many of those have we stopped? There was one writer, I remember, Agent 99, told me about it. The guy said 40 false flag operations have been stopped. 40. That's not too bad. So I think on this team, you can probably account for 10, maybe 12. Sometimes I've forgotten about some of them. By breaking these Google codes, by peeling back what we see and what we understand and looking deeper into the rabbit hole, finding things, and having the courage to speak out. See, we don't even have the courage to speak, and yet we're going to go around and start a fight. That's amazing. We need 20 years of just getting everybody ready, like armed forces workout, to have a generation that's able to fight. Not to just say, oh, let's go bust some bunkers and we'll go home. Yeah, you can go home, but they're coming after you. And you're going to try to take over their land. If you thought Afghanistan was tough, you ain't seen nothing till you go to Iran. Iran cleared the landmine fields with their own children. Not by giving them little metal detectors and bayonets to dig them out. They walked across the field and blew them up. How many of you are prepared to do that? Most of you are probably not even prepared to go without electricity for 24 hours, never mind to walk your kids across a minefield at gunpoint, shoot the ones that don't go. That might be in Obama's next campaign. Because if they shred the Constitution, why not be Presidente for life? Just almost makes you sick. So then we got a little piece here, the stewardess or flight attendant who got on a plane, freaked out, said the plane's going to crash. So this plane was supposed to fly to Chicago from Dallas. The flight attendant went on the PA system, did all kinds of rambling about she's not responsible for the plane crashing and all this kind of thing. We're like, oh yeah, she's a nut, goodbye. Then you got to wonder. Somebody had to know something on some of these planes on 9/11. She knew some of the people involved. Had to have inside information that something's going on. Maybe just took the initiative, in spite of the fact everybody's going to want you locked up in a mental hospital. They're never going to unlock you and let you out again. Just figuring, my country is worth more than that. The people on the plane's lives are worth more than what happens to me. So I'm going to do something, and I'm going to stop that thing from happening. So if that's the case, well, she's a hero. We'll probably never hear from her again because they'll lock her up somewhere, and we'll never know. One blogger I came across mentioned something about this little gizmo, the QRS-11. It's a chip made by BEI Technologies in Concord, California. You see it there next to a dime, weighs about 2 ounces, sells for between $1,000 and $2,000. And he mentioned that there's those kinds of chips on planes to take them over. That you have 3 of them. They're like a backup control system. They're also used as a missile guidance system. So Boeing got in a little bit of trouble for selling planes to the Chinese with that. And in this old article, which is from 2000, says that these things were put in planes all around the world. All different kinds of companies. And they imply that they could take over planes with those things. Wasn't that amazing? The QRS-11. But they make newer and better chips now. God only knows what they can do and how much they cost. So the same chap who said he was a Knight of Malta also implied that this plane was carrying a nuclear weapon. And it was going to Chicago. Maybe President Obama saying, Mr. Emmanuel, your services are no longer required. You've been a good stooge to the New World Order, and we let you be mayor of Chicago, but we're wiping you out. This guy also said they canceled the same day one of those big exercises, Atlantis 2012-02, and that's true, it was. It was canceled. The plane does have the chips. So is the guy a hairball? Is he on the target here with this possibility of there being a nuclear weapon on board? Who knows? But one thing we do know, strange as it happens too, is due to security fears, the G8 summit is canceled and is being moved to Camp David, Maryland. Well, that's a biggie. You know, Chicago police, they've been on roids for a while now, just practicing. I beat you, you mother! I beat you! Ha! Freedom! Ha! Constitution! 6 more, baby! Just like in Toronto. It's called freedom. It's the only thing these Muslims want to do is take away our freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from being beaten from the cops. It's your job. You're supposed to be beaten by the cops. It's in the Constitution. You just didn't read that part. It's secret. Because they passed laws, right? New bill drafted by Congress, House Resolution 347, to make it a federal offense to trespass on the grounds of any place guarded by the Secret Service, which would include the NATO summit in Chicago or any place else. So all of a sudden, you just don't have the right to assemble and to speak or to protest or to do anything. I think they call that tyranny if you're in Libya or were in Libya or one of these other countries. That was a long time ago. Now we're all oppressors. There's no difference in the New World Order. They're all the same. It's all the same. They talk about all these highfalutin ideals, because even the people that we say are madmen have highfalutin ideals. They say they're okay. And it's all a lie. They're evil. Our leaders are evil. I think if someone didn't fire a shot on the G20, that the police wouldn't have just opened up and massacred dozens, maybe hundreds of people, just like that. Just start, you know, cleaning and gutting a little bit, hang them from a pole upside down and bash them in the head with a stick. You think all the prisoners there at Guantanamo Central down there in the movie film studio, you don't rape a couple of the girls, throw their bodies in the lake, nobody will find them. Let them float over to Buffalo. Think they wouldn't do that? In a heartbeat. Because they're sadists. They enjoyed it. It was fun. So, if your primary responsibility is to take an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, and that's in our police oath up here too, not exactly in those words, and you do all that kind of crap, well, you're a whore. Complete and total evil. That's why they wear black, because they're Antichrist. I guess they don't show old westerns anymore. People don't probably know what end of the horse the food goes in. We're so out of touch with reality, but in the old days it was the good guys don't wear black. Well, I take that as like one of those irrefutable laws of the universe. Because I don't look at all these guys going around in the black as good guys. So they're wearing the appropriate clothes. They're like the Darth Vaders. They don't deserve to be wearing any other color, that's for sure, because their hearts are black, their souls are black. And what did one of these black-hearted souls do? Well, he goes around Afghanistan and just starts slaughtering all kinds of sleeping people, women and children. So one of the fine things in my research, I find out that Guantanamo detainee number 951 just happened to be captured in the same little village where these attacks happened. Well, that seemed kind of strange to me. Just kind of jumped out and bit me. So he was returned in 2007, captured in 2003. Is there some significance to this place that he was released there? Was this the guy they were really after, maybe? Because I still firmly believe that Guantanamo is not a holding center, it's a reconditioning center. That's where they make the Manchurians, and then they release them, and they go out into the world to do what has to be done. That's why Guantanamo is so secret. It's got nothing to do with the fact that, you know, cab driver in Kabul drove past somebody on the street and might know who they are or something like that. No, it's got nothing to do with that. They're picking potential conditionees to release into the environment, to do future role plays. And one of these was doing these kind of role plays where you just find like these little kids here under the blanket. They put the words on top so you can't see the blood splatter and guts and stuff like that leaking out. Leave that for this woman to look at. He goes around to these two little villages and he just starts blasting people. So he leaves his fort alone in hostile territory. Now that's got to be a major warning sign here. Enters these homes, shot one guy's whole family. He wasn't home, so somehow I get the feeling he was the target. And he knew not to be home, because they know when they're coming, because usually there's helicopter movement in the sky, something changes. You know, they just take it as it's a daily occurrence. They're these night raids. See, because that's why they're trying to give them freedom and democracy. Freedom and democracy means the army comes around any old time, day or night, kicks in your door, and blows you away while you're sleeping. Like, what part of it don't you sandheads understand? See, as you sow, and that doesn't mean with a needle and thread. It's putting seeds in the ground just in case we need a translation. As you sow, so shall you reap, because those seeds you planted are going to grow up and become the monsters going to bite your head off. So as you have sown in these countries for these years, you planted the seeds that are going to grow in your own country. Remember Radar O'Reilly there in MASH, come from that little town of Tumba, Iowa? Like, that's got to be like his heartland is America. So now you're going to have like thugs and Gestapo. See the drones come out, monitor you. Then 3 o'clock in the morning, the doors kicked in. Soldiers come in. Down, down, down. Everybody down. Everybody down. Oh, kids. Bop, 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 bop. Oh, there's another one. Bop, 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 bop. Shit, man. That's better than doing drugs. As you sow, so shall you reap. So you better be careful what you ask for, because America, this is coming for you. You're next. Get the pop culture out of your ears, baby. And then see this woman here, that's going to be your kids there on the ground, and you're going to be sitting beside them in the back of a truck, if you live, going, why'd they do that? Why'd they do that? I don't understand. So of course, and I guess we could show our picture of our universal soldier here. I like this one here. This is the American peacekeeper here. This is going to be what you have to bow down to in the middle of the night. So you wake up in the middle of the night, that's going to be looking at you, you know, from your bed. Got the grenade launcher too, you know, just in case you get really ornery. Maybe you got like a 7 or 8 year old, eh? Oh, they're tough. You know, man, you know how hard it is to shoot one of them 7 or 8 year olds when they're sleeping? You need the grenade launcher. And then you got like all the Star Trek stuff attached to your head there, so you look like the Borg. But that's what it's like to wake up sometimes in Afghanistan. And one day, probably not too far off in the distant future, that's what it's going to look like when you wake up. It's not going to be the alarm clock. You're going to look up at something like that. And it's going to look down on you. So what this idiot did, who's not named, that's another thing you know, something seriously wrong here. The guy's not been named. He's only a killer. Well, you got to protect his name for. Oh yeah, that's right. He's one of our Manchurians. That's right. Can't release his name. People might find out about what really happened. So he goes into this place, and a lot of the witnesses said, they all said there was multiple shooters and gunfire all over the place, so the bullshit that he was all alone is bullshit. The fact that he turned himself in is probably bullshit too. Unless it was just part of the programming. You know, kill, slaughter, kill, slaughter, kill, slaughter. And then someone says, duck in a noose. Duck in a noose, duck in a noose, duck in a noose. Turn off, go home. Here's my gun. I surrender. Where have we heard that before? Oh yeah, the Beltway sniper. And we wonder too, like, you know, this Dr. Caraveo killed at Fort Hood by the other doctor, Major Hassan, both psychiatrists at Guantanamo. Like, am I the only broadcaster in the world who looks at a magazine from Guantanamo, their newspaper called The Wire, and find these guys in there? can't afford to look on the internet at CNN, can't afford to look on the internet on the BBC, can't afford to do much of anything except lead you away. So this guy just walks around like some kind of zombie looking for something to kill. That's not him, but probably looked like that in a way because it was just dark. That's about the only difference. So a lot of these people were shot in the leg. Right away that tells me something, you know, because you understand a little bit about organized crime or criminality and my background and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, the mob comes and they want you to talk, right? You say, I don't know nothing. What they do is shoot you in the leg. Now tell me something. And usually you get all kinds of strange sentences. Sounds like he was asking people for information about something. So is this like part of some kind of criminal enterprise that they may have been in? There's some kind of drug smuggling operation going on, some kind of criminal enterprise? That could be reasonable to conclude. Or is it just plain robo guy goes berserk? But like I say, as you sow, so shall you reap. And America has a lot of atoning to do for a lot of the things that have happened in the last little while. And if you don't understand that, you're in even more doo-doo than I think you are. But we have rays of sunshine. We make a lot of noise. And it gets around. See, the internet's something like, you know, stuff that's planted out there like little bombs, just ready to go off as soon as somebody feels. I call them thought bombs, information grenades. You catch one, boom, you see something, whoa! And that brain just fires up. Never thought of that before. Whoa, look at that, dots are connected. So one of the ones we've been trying to fire, and we appreciate your help in that, and that's why, you know, sometimes we solicit funds here to say help us out, because we do good work. We make changes here. Stopping false flag operations, you know, if you like thermonuclear clouds, I guess don't help out. They'll get you sooner or later. If you like that Goonie guy with the grenade launcher and you want him to shoot your kids, don't help out. Don't turn this into something. Just slither in a corner and let them shoot you. But some of the other good works we do, aside from stopping the false flag operations, is, you know, we point the fingers up as opposed to down, to where the people who commit the crimes want the fingers pointed because they're up. And of course, one of the ones we've been pointing a lot of fingers at was as a result of this disappearance and most likely murder of a young 5-year-old, or pardon me, young 4-year-old, I believe she was at the time. It's been 5 years since the murder of Madeleine McCann, a little British girl who went missing on holidays in Praia da Luz, Portugal. Well, I'm shy. I don't say what I want to say or anything like that, and attach, you know, like those nasty words to ideas and stuff like that. But that pissed me right off. And with the help of this show, and also with the Power Hour, we did a lot of stuff on Madeleine McCann and the Chipping Norton set in England and all those dirty, rotten, miserable, disgusting pieces of crap that they call their leaders. And of course, we know that from looking into this so-called hacking scandal in Britain. It's not hacking. It goes way beyond hacking. It's murder. Beyond even murder. It's probably like organized killing rings. That's how far gone it is. And when you hire a whole bunch of guys who are professional hitmen and killers, sometimes they like to let off a little steam and kill little kids for fun. Goes with the job. You can't turn them in because they're part of your own whack team. So you just let them get away with it. They do it all over the world. It's no different over there. So we were one of the ones to point the finger at the fact that someone related to this inner circle owned a villa in this place, Sir Clement Freud. Elizabeth Murdoch is married to Matthew Freud. They're direct relatives. Rebecca Brooks works for Elizabeth Murdoch. That's a pretty tight little circle. One deletes messages of dead children, hacks phones of everybody on creation, and another one just happens to own a home in the same village. Not just own a home, but Sir Clement Freud actually worked in the home of Madeleine McCann as a cook. The Portuguese detective who was investigating the case at the time said the body was still there days after she disappeared. They brought in a cadaver dog, found forensic evidence to say that there was a body in the house. Clement was working in there. He's a cook. Child stroganoff, my masterpiece. Nobody has the guts to say that. We do. So what we get, the good news is, ray of hope 5 years after. Portugal's police have put together a special unit from outside of the locale to reopen the investigation and go over leads. And we're hoping we had something to do with that. See, if you like putting away child murderers and stuff like that, then this is something to invest in. See, it's a whole lot better than betting on football teams. Wouldn't it be nice that at least we find out who killed that little girl? They made Clements dead. His brother Lucien, he's dead too. He died about a week after I exposed that on the Power Hour. Hope it had nothing to do with me. But that's where it goes. This isn't hacking, it's murder. Of course, after we wrote this MP in England, we got his picture here. I don't know if he's a dweeb or an honest, decent guy. We'll find out. Maybe some other people. Maybe everybody should write people in England. You know, life isn't a spectator sport, eh? Write every newspaper editor you can find out and tell them what you think about this. Stuff on the blog and get you going enough ways. Say who did it and how. Connect the dots for them. And just say, hey, you child killing pieces of scum. It's not hacking, it's murder. So we wrote this guy, and then all of a sudden they arrested Rebecca Brooks and her hench people again and charged them with bigger offenses. Well, they haven't been charged with anything, but arrested them for bigger offenses. But this is what it's all about. This is this kid. Look into her eyes. How many of you have been parents? Had that, something like that 4-year-old clinging on. That's what we used to call mine Klingons. Because they cling on. And then a parody with Star Trek with Klingons. You going to let them get away with shit like that? Not me, baby. I don't care they're millionaires. I don't care they're billionaires. I know one thing. If anything points to the fact that we have a major criminal child luring ring. That's what they were doing. They were luring children. That's why they had to delete the messages. Because when you went on some of those phones where the messages were, if the police got there in time and they heard a message like, oh, Millie Dowler, meet me by the, and I'll buy you some ice cream. See, the cops would probably figure out real quick that you were up to no good. Why they can't figure out that in Britain, I have no idea. Well, I guess I do have an idea, because they've put into place at the executive level all kinds of deficient people to be chief constables, ministers of the crown even. Some of these bribes they talk about in these investigations to say these coppers are taking money for drug dealing. Well, you can't get any lower than that. If you stoop that low, you'll do anything. To cover up for anything else, you don't care. Even some of these things where they're looking for information, to get information, simple information, they're paying £5,000 for it. That sounds like they're paying for a whole lot more than just to find out what somebody's phone number or license plate number is. And then a couple of them had to resign, like Sir Ian Blair, chief of the London Met, the assistant commissioner. See, they just couldn't figure it out. So my big question is, like, what the hell are you doing in charge if you can't figure it out? Like, this one's open and shut. Then there's the witness in Spain who saw somebody who looked like Elizabeth Murdoch with a young child. So if they wouldn't say that, they blamed it on some Australian woman. So of course the police go out and say, well, we were busy, there was terrorism. We had to deal with terrorism. So I look at that, that's the lame duck excuse of the century. Same thing happened here in Toronto with our crooked drug squads. The chiefs come out and says, hey, It's terrorism. I had to deal with terrorism. As a post-9/11 world, I had to let dozens and dozens of evil coppers loose to beat you and torment you. So you woke up in the middle of the night, you looked down that big gun, didn't have a grenade launcher, because they're just cops. They'll get the grenade launchers next year. You know, give us all your money, give us all your drugs. And they stole them. So that's okay. See, as long as you're doing the ripping, the raping, and the robbing, that's okay because you're employed by the Crown. Something wrong with that picture, I think. So it's this one here that I got centered out. Former Commissioner Lord Stevens and former Assistant Commissioner Andy Heyman were employed by the publishing company after they retired from the Met. Former News International editors and journalists were taken on by the force as press advisors. So that's a good deal. So we have that here in Toronto. We had a big murder once. They blamed it on the wrong guy. He went through hell. So Detective Sergeant Reeser, who did that, he got promoted to deputy chief, and then he gets one of those big jobs where he's head of security for Magna Corporation. So it just sounds like the same kind of thing. You smoke the bone, and all the money falls in your lap, and all the promotions. You don't, well then you end up like that sergeant who got run over here in downtown Toronto. Because it was only this show that really looked into what happened to this guy. And then even after I did the show, then one of my buddies come up to me and tell me he wasn't supposed to be there that day. They were talking to his wife or something. They changed his itinerary for the day. He wasn't supposed to be on the road, or he was supposed to be in another area, but they changed something to put him there in the path of the killer with the truck, who's supposed to be some kind of nut bar, who's related to a guy who's the Russian mob, whose wife whacked out the International Monetary Fund for a big donation to Russia a few years back for mega millions. They did a Madoff scheme on their company here in Toronto, and then his cousin, who's supposed to be like a psychotic homeless guy, just happens to kill a cop who was in the Gangs and Guns task force. What gangs and guns was he looking into? Russian? And they just kill him like that. Boom. And of course, what, 10,000 guys come to his funeral. Isn't one of them figured out what happened or how deep the rabbit hole goes? Squire, he's blaming on this nut here, man. Let's get drunk and have a beer. Yeah, we're going out with the drug squad tonight. I never even knew the guy. But at least I got the decency to say, I think there's something really deep in this rabbit hole. Got to drive by where they killed him almost every day. So at least I won't forget. So one of the things that News of the World did is they were bugging the phones of this guy who was an IRA informant, Freddie Scappaticci, codename Steak Knife. And I get the feeling he wasn't the nicest kind of guy in the world. So they're involved in something like IRA death squads. One of their sources or people in the chain was in Spain, where they have all these yachting races. He's the guy putting out the 5,000 pounds on a regular basis. Then, of course, there was one of the original private detectives, Daniel Morgan, 25 years ago, talking about the police corruption and all the things going on. Killed in a pub, car park. He was poised to expose a circle of corrupt police and underworld figures in the drug business, and they're all wrapped in with this News of the World, Rupert Murdoch, child diddlers, child murderers, assassins. Now the police even in England have the nerve to hack the website of David Kelly, the man who told the truth about the lies and the fakes going to war. And you have a former Prime Minister there putting all that under the Official Secrets Act, Tony Blair putting Madeleine McCann under the Official Secrets Act. So what does that tell me, sir? Only tells me one thing. If you didn't screw her, somebody either on your left hand or your right hand did. Because there's no other reason. You'll see that in the documentary on the Titanic. And we see Qatar owns Britain. They have a sovereign wealth fund. I heard that before. Some guy in Conspiracy Cafe talks about those things like secret monies of such overwhelming natures that they're just buying England out. And of course, once you own England, then you just tell them to say, okay, you know, I got some competition, you know, like Libya, Iran, Iraq. They're in the oil business. I'm in the oil business. It's like any mafioso, you know. I don't like competition. Let's get rid of some of this competition. So you get these dumb guys from England who just watch football and look at page 3 girls of Rupert Murdoch's newspapers, and that's the total sum knowledge of the human race. And what do? They get a big jihad going, and let's go start a war for our friends who are buying out our country and putting us all out of work because we don't even know what's going on in the first place. Brilliant. Brilliant. And then we look at this whole thing with Assad, and then we're flipped here. We're like, can we trust the media? Who's lying? Is it Assad or the media? They probably both lie. So we're stuck in the middle. So maybe we'll go into that in a little bit and get you into the Titanic or something like that, and just like a good background in conspiracy, how conspiracy works. We'll just show a short segment of this. We'll do one a week until we come up to Titanic Day, because it's the big anniversary this April. And you just see it's the same stuff every day. Different players, different events, same stuff. The crew got off the boats, not in this first clip. Too bad, you'll have to wait till the next ones. They took them away in a quiet place and made them swear an oath under the Official Secrets Act that you could never tell what happened to the Titanic. You don't see this in the BS documentaries. Wasn't in the Toronto Star. They got a multi-million-dollar budget. They could never figure that out. But then, of course, their editors with the Bilderberg Group or something, or a CEO, one of their head honchos, so of course they're never going to tell you how the scams work. But let's see if we can get this puppy going here.
Everyone knows the story of the Titanic, how the largest moving object ever fashioned by the hand of man hit an iceberg on its maiden voyage and sank in the middle of the North Atlantic. 1,500 lives were lost. The tragedy has been well documented in books and on film. No matter how often the story is told, it never fails to capture our imagination. Yet, it is a story that has left many questions unanswered. Now, for the first time, we take a fresh look at some of the mysteries surrounding the Titanic and reveal evidence that leads to a compelling and shocking hypothesis: that the ship that plummeted 2 miles to the bottom of the sea was not the Titanic, but its sister ship, the Olympic. For the White Star Line by Belfast shipbuilders Harland and Wolff, whose chairman was Lord Pirrie. Harland and Wolff built ships almost exclusively for the White Star Line, which was acquired in 1903 by American financier J. Pierpont Morgan's International Mercantile Marine. This was part of a drive to create a monopoly on the lucrative North Atlantic passenger trade. Chairman of the White Star Line was J. Bruce Ismay. It was in fact Lord Pirrie who was responsible for bringing together Morgan's money and British engineering excellence. Over dinner at Pirrie's London residence in 1907, Lord Pirrie and White Star Line's Bruce Ismay conceived the idea of building 3 luxurious superliners. First the Olympic,
Broadcasting record.
Then the Titanic.
Could be.
And finally the Britannic. The first of the new ships, Olympic and Titanic, were to be virtually identical. This represented the White Star Line's survival strategy in the highly competitive North Atlantic passenger market, while also ensuring a bright future for the Harland & Wolff shipyard. As well as holding a large financial stake in Harland & Wolff, Lord Pirrie was a shareholder in the White Star Line and the International Mercantile Marine. Almost all passenger liners on the North Atlantic route in the early part of the 20th century were immigrant ships. In poor condition, many were known as coffin ships, and their owners blatantly overloaded and overinsured their vessels. In fact, it was an industry noted at the time for fraud. On the 14th of June 1911, the Olympic made her maiden voyage, under the command of Captain Edward J. Smith, Commodore of the White Star Line. Then just a week later, still under the command of Edward Smith, the Olympic was involved in a stern collision with the tug O.L. Hallenbeck in New York, an accident that nearly caused the tug to sink. Barely 3 months later, on the 20th of September 1911, the Olympic, still under the command of Captain Smith, was involved in yet another collision, this time with the British warship HMS Hawke, in the Brambles Channel in Southampton Water. It was a serious collision, which was to seal the fate of the Olympic. Pulled in by the suction from the Olympic's great propellers, the Hawke is irresistibly drawn towards the larger vessel, and the two ships collide. The Hawke's underwater ram and bows strike and penetrate the starboard side of the Olympic, causing a triangular hole several meters high, and an even larger hole below the waterline. Any accident involving a Royal Naval ship was investigated by the Admiralty, who, not surprisingly in this case, found that the Olympic was at fault, even though the evidence, including eyewitness accounts, suggested otherwise. As a consequence of this ruling, the White Star's insurers declined to pay out on the claim. The damage done to the Olympic was severe. Besides being holed both above and below the waterline, she sustained numerous other injuries, including steel frames buckled, thousands of rivets popped, steel plating dislodged over 4 decks, and distortion to the starboard propeller and crankshaft. To make matters worse, the keel was bent, giving the ship a pronounced list to port. Interestingly enough, when 6 months later the ship which came to be known as the Titanic made her maiden voyage out of Southampton, second-class passenger Lawrence Beasley, a science teacher, noted that the ship seemed to have a slight but permanent list to port on the first part of the voyage, a fact noted by several other surviving passengers. The great hull was patched up in Southampton by riveting steel plates below the waterline and reinforcing with wooden beams above. This work took over 2 weeks, suggesting just how serious the damage was. In October 1911, with these temporary repair works in place, the Olympic then limped back to the Harland & Wolff shipyard in Belfast for more permanent repairs to be done. In fact, some of those temporary repairs failed during the voyage to Belfast. By the way, remember that although this is a model of the Olympic, the two ships were virtually identical. It's this fact which made a conspiracy feasible. A conspiracy of monumental proportions.
The starboard propeller is going to have to be replaced, and the crankshaft is damaged. There's a crack between the arm and the shaft. But worse, the keel is bent. That's going to give her a permanent list to port, and there's no way we can correct that. We're going to have to cut the ship in half, insert a new frame, and then put it all back together again. The job is going to take months, and frankly, for what it's going to cost, I think it's simply a waste of time.
Can you not just patch her up until Titanic is ready?
Well, we could put in a bulkhead to strengthen her. But to be honest, sir, she will never pass another Board of Trade inspection.
In In Belfast, the Titanic was nearing completion, but all work on her stopped so that every effort could be put into the repair of the Olympic. This work took 7 weeks instead of the 2 weeks originally planned, and involved replacing steel plates along fully 1/3 of the starboard side of the ship. Another indication that the damage was far worse than was originally thought. Now look at this. This is a film of the Olympic backing out of the dock in New York. You can see where she's been patched up on her starboard side. It's a huge area. And that's just the damage above the waterline. In order to get the Olympic back to sea and earning a profit as soon as possible, the starboard propeller, stamped with the Titanic's number 401 and not yet fitted to the Titanic, was fitted to the Olympic. This is a fact of some considerable significance, as we shall find out later. The Olympic's troubles, however, were only just beginning. After leaving New York Harbor on the 24th of February 1912, she ran over a sunken wreck off the Grand Banks and threw a propeller blade again on this starboard side. The loss of the propeller blade shock-loaded the engine and drive shaft and placed enormous stresses on the already weakened liner. She limped back to Southampton on only one engine, arriving there on the 28th of February. By the 2nd of March, she was once again in the Thompson Dry Dock in Belfast, having her propeller blade replaced. This should have taken only a few hours, but the Olympic was there, in Belfast, until the 7th of March. In Belfast, the Titanic and the Olympic were most often berthed side by side, and were regularly moved in and out of the Thompson Dry Dock, especially during repairs to the Olympic. On close examination of contemporary archive photographs, it is possible to see the minor differences in design that tell the two ships apart. On the forward part of sea deck,
Okay. We'll take that up again next week for a little more. But what he's going to say is the portholes are different. One had 14, one had 16. And then there's that infamous propeller blade. 401 is at the bottom of the ocean. That was Olympic's propeller. And as you see on our blog, we have a couple of pictures. It should be like, pictures that are just tremendous pictures of evidence of one of the greatest historical incidents that have happened, ever. Everybody talks about the Titanic. It's probably one of the most well-known ships. And this one should be like everywhere. This is the nameplate. See, the name was embedded in the steel and the letters fell off. 2 letters under the ocean over time. And we see this letter, M, and this one, P. That's part of spelling Titanic, right? Because we've been dumbed down so much. But this one's just fallen off the radar screen. Somebody put it up on David Icke's website, and thank God for that. And then this one, of course, shows a piece of metal from the ship with gray paint. Titanic was never painted with gray. That was the repair paint after the collisions. So we see how we're manipulated all the time with lies and deceits at the highest levels of government, corporations, the media. You can't trust any of them. That's why the only alternative you have is to find something else, to build something new. The only reason Murdoch has power over the world, the only reason he could get away with what he got away with, the only reason the New World Order is doing what they're doing is because you have given them the power. By buying their media, watching their media, consuming their media, using their media. You change the channel, you change the paradigm, you win the war. It's over, baby. But it's entirely up to you. I'll put it out to the best of my ability. My colleagues here will do their best to put it out, to get something out there for you to watch, to have another alternative. But it's up to you to change the channel. And then it's over. One guy it should be over for is Obama. They're starting impeachment proceedings. High crimes and misdemeanors. So if you follow, alternative media, this is a crisis. Because Obama doesn't have any powers from the Congress to get into his next war. He says he doesn't need them and he doesn't want them. And the Secretary of Defense says the same thing. Doesn't need them and he doesn't want them. So in the little quote I have here, it was, this week the Secretary of Defense Panetta's declaration before the Senate Armed Services Committee that he and President Obama look not to Congress for authorization to bomb Syria, but to NATO and the United Nations. Well, there's nothing in the Constitution that says NATO and the United Nations have a tinker's damn to say about what happens in the United States and how war powers are delegated. They're specifically delegated from the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, that that's something, a power the Congress has. Nobody else. So they have no use for you. Representative Walter B. Jones, Republican, North Carolina, introduced a resolution declaring that the President should be impeached. That doing this is a high crime and misdemeanor as defined by the Constitution. So of course you don't find that in the corporate media because they're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you the Titanic sunk. They're not going to tell you much of anything. So the other thing is why do you pay for it? Why do you buy it? It's not even that it's a good whore. It's a bad one. It lies to you all the time. It uses you, takes advantage of you. So you have to wonder. Of course, Obama here in this little picture, he's cuddling with his, commie buddy in college days. Harvard Law School's Professor Charles Ogletree. Admitted on our exclusive tape, we hid this throughout the 2008 campaign. I don't care if they find it now. So this is what Breitbart died for. Well, this is just the huggy-kissy stuff. I'm sure he had the juicy stuff, which we'll probably never get to see. But this is the huggy-kissy Professor Derek Bell and Obama as a student. So there's talk about them being with the Weather Underground. That was a hardcore terrorist organization. Look them up on the internet. Do a little research. Maybe you're too young to remember them. But that's where he was. Totally committed to the New World Order and all its manifestations. The Obama impersonator Steve Bridges dies too, as well, mysteriously at age 48. Good stand-up comedian. They're even killing the comedians. Hell, I remember in the 60s, like that was the best thing to watch. Maybe that's why I am what I am. But you had all these great comedians just, lapping them. Johnson, Tricky Dicky, just beating these guys every day. I thought presidents were just for, you tie a can to their tail and kick them down the street or something like that. Especially with examples like that. But it was just, no ending. Especially that classic old show, Laugh-In. Virginia State Senate passes bill forbidding indefinite detention of Americans. Well, might makes right. We'll see who can sort that out. The missiles are flying in the Gaza again. So, the war is there. Israel launched jet attacks on people, kill more of those little 4-year-olds. You see pictures of them here and there. There's one here clutching her teddy bear or doll or something like that, blood all over and stuff like that. That's what they do. So you think sometimes they don't do it close up like they did with Maddie? Sure they do. So then we look at what's going on. These same kind of demonic soldiers, like this American guy who went around and blew away everything. Our staff sergeant killed all these people. Well, there's bands of brigands going around and blowing people away in the same way in Syria. So in one article I have here, 57 women and children discovered in Syria, many tortured, women raped. And that's one of the things that just boggles my mind. Because generally as a gender, it's the women who shy away from shooting sports and stuff like that. But you're the ones that are going to get raped and slaughtered. They just kill us guys. Maybe there's a few that like the boys, but generally it's the girls that take it and the kids. And you got this fear of protecting yourself. Remember on the BBC they had a great thing once, somebody found Grandma's journal from the wagon train going across the United States. And they're reading from this, and because you're so many generations removed, you got no idea what your great-great-grandma's talking about. And she says in the diary, no sensible woman leaves the house without a knife and a good pistol. They didn't understand. You got to be raped a few times savagely to understand that. When they cut your breasts off and they stick a bayonet or, you know, some other pointy thing up in your vagina and they burn you and stuff like that, then you understand what the knife and the good pistol's for. Till that, you never think it's going to happen to you, right? So that's one thing I like, is because, you know, I've been an activist on the gun control front, because the right of the people, we the people, to possess the powers of deadly force, the ultimate change, is just the basic root of the British system. The Americans wrote it down. We didn't. So, well, we did write it down, but we wrote it down so long ago. That was in the British Bill of Rights. 2 kings in a row said that that's an inviolable right, a God-given right to bear arms. That's where the Americans got it from. And then we brainwash our kids and then teach them that that's that's wrong. Only the police and the military should have the guns. See, that way they can go around in the middle of the night and kick in your door and boom, 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 and shoot you. And then, as they do in some other countries, is barbecue you slowly while they rape you. And then make that nice little child stroganoff. Ooh. And beat them and torture them, because they can get away with it, you see? And one thing I haven't seen is our classic gun control activist, who's just down the street at Ryerson University, if she's still there, Wendy Sukier, going around saying, you know, she should be going to Syria saying, you know, only the police and the military should have guns. What's the matter with you bitches? Can't you die for your country? Let them rape you. Let them kill your children. Let the police go around late at night robbing the drug dealers and stealing money, while the chief's too busy looking at terrorists. Well, because he got a cut too. You're probably talking a theft ring that was unbelievable. So of course now we make the guy a cabinet minister or something like that, so they can launder more money and steal more money and be more in control and pass laws to go after we the people. So we're letting the devil make the details, completely and totally. The ultimate whoremongers and whoremasters. And you're so dumb, you just let them do it, because you're too busy. Sports. Gotta watch the sports. Ooh, the soap opera's on. Reality TV. A whole bunch of people pretending to be nuts is reality, because it's on a screen. No, reality's like looking out the window, touching people with flesh and pulses. That's reality. Watching your rights go down the tube, learning and studying and teaching your children what the Constitution is, how it got there. Teaching them about the finer points of frauds and conspiracies and criminal acts, because one day you're going to grow up and you're going to have to vote and you're going to see 6 crooks and you got to pick one. And hopefully you got the foresight not to pick any one of the mothers and find somebody else. So Wendy, like, if you want to go and preach your gospel, I'll pay your ticket to go to Homs. You can report back to the BBC about what's going on in there, you know, make a little extra cash. And you can go preach around, only the police and the military should have guns. Everybody's going to believe you. It just makes you want to sick that you could have traitors, full-scale traitors to the human race, full-scale traitors to we the people, proselytizing total bullshit to turn you into victims of the most oppressive police state that's ever going to be manufactured in the history of the human race. Because maybe, just maybe, she likes that 4-year-old stroganoff prepared by Sir Clement. Ah, it's so good. They should be imprisoned. You know how many people fought and died to get us that Bill of Rights? Admittedly, they were Englishmen and they died in the English Civil Wars. But that was all part of the Inquisition. And women like Wendy Sukier would have been burned at the stake in a different kind of stroganoff. So then a lot of people look to Vladimir Putin and they say, oh, Vladimir, you know, he's such a good guy, he's going to fight the New World Order, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. Well, Vladimir had his election, now they're arresting protesters in his country. Went through a big long article on Vladimir, he wrote it himself. This is his editorial. It's 20 pages long or something like that. So, little one here. We strive to ensure a new world order! A new world order! What part of it don't you understand? There must be a clear division between freedom of speech and normal political activity on the one hand, and illegal instruments of soft power on the other. So he understands what these Occupy people are like and all these other protesters that are hired as stooges to work for big corporate rich billionaires and think tanks and stuff like that. But at the same time, you're limiting freedom of speech. Beijing shares our vision of the emerging, equitable world order. You don't get fries with that world order, you get fried. And then this one was really cute. External financial injections can only partially solve the problem of Europe. A true solution will require energetic, system-wide measures. Task of effective, large-scale transformations that will fundamentally change many financial and economic mechanisms to ensure genuine budget discipline, ensuring a strong EU as envisioned by Germany and France. Probably the Germany that had the guy with the little mustache. I propose again that we work toward creating a harmonious community of economies from Lisbon to Vladivostok. See, Hitler only wanted it from the Caucasus to Scandinavia, which will in the future evolve into a free trade zone and even more advanced forms of economic integration. The resulting common continental market would be worth trillions of euros, as if they're going to be worth anything. Does anyone doubt that this would be a wonderful development? I doubt. I doubt. And then who visits him regularly? Henry Kissinger. The Wizard of Oz pulling his strings. So they're all stooges of the New World Order. We got to pick a whole new team here globally around the world to have people who aren't controlled by this crap. Supposed to be a big crash coming. The CME Clearing Europe Limited, pursuant to Section 7 of the Commodity Exchange Act and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, has issued an order on March 13, 2012 vacating registration of CMECEL as a derivative trading clearing organization. So there's going to be a big auction of these credit default swaps on March the 19th. Supposed to be a $2.6 billion payout from insurance companies. They're going to put a lot of them on the skids. So as I look this up in one of the financial papers, I find out, like, as of last month, if you had one of these credit default swaps from Greece worth $1 million, when you sold it in February, you got $678,000 in interest. What crisis? I got to look at that one again and maybe take off the rose-colored glasses or something and look at something like they had in The Prisoner. You know, where you look up at the ceiling and something spins around. That's not bad action. I didn't get that kind of interest on any money I got. Didn't get any. The Greek bailout is preordained. Germany's given them a deck of cards they can't handle because they want them out of the European Union. Dick Cheney is coming to Toronto, but he changed his mind at the last minute. Found a nice picture of Tricky Dicky here. He's one of our others. They see him, they're not in power anymore. You can't really kick the vice president. He's almost looks normal or something like that, but there's Tricky Dicky. The big reason he can't come to Canada, he wanted to bring that big-ass gun with him, and we just don't allow that around here. Our guns are just for drug dealers and the police and the military, and we don't even let the military carry them all the time unless they got a Barney bullet. Nicolas Sarkozy lashes out over Colonel Gaddafi. Journalist exposing him or something. He took £42 million in the 2007 election. He doesn't deny that. He's just mad at the journalist for telling the world that he took 42 million British pounds. And that's like $100 million. And then, what kind of a shit was he? And then he goes and he stabs this guy in the back. But see, now we get into like that conspiracy, like in the Titanic. As it says in the article, Gaddafi's son called him a clown, and then he said he should pay back the money. Because maybe he didn't give it to him, maybe he extended him a loan. And then Sarkozy blows it all over the place and he can't pay it back. So what do? Let's have a regime change. And I keep 100 mil. See? It's the same stuff. Nestle chairman going to the World Water Forum. So they're going to probably take over the World Water because we probably didn't even know there's a World Water Forum going on. But all the big corporations did. They're all there with the NGOs, the United Nations. Everybody's talking world water, shortage. We'll take it all over. We'll charge you $50 an ounce because you need the stuff. Britain insecurity alert because NATO's top chief had his data stolen from all his friends. They set up a fake Facebook page here for the top admiral in the United States Navy, Admiral James Stavridis. Nobody in a position like that is going to have a Facebook page. Then a funny one, Olympic missile defenses under threat from the cocky-fruited water dropwort. So because of this little plant, they're not going to put defensive missiles around the Olympics in London. So I look at that as just something like a coded message to tell you something's going to happen, because this is like total BS. But then we expect some things to happen at the Olympics. As memory serves me, this is one of the few forums that has brought out stuff like this, and as we show on our website, conspiracy-cafe.com, there was this little logo that's out about the Olympics, and when you rearrange it into lots of different things, you see lots of different things. Like one, it spells Zion, and then, you know, stuff like a mushroom cloud, Big Ben, the crucifixion of Christ, the running man, the little bomb, or maybe it crapped its drawers, I don't know, the dancing man, just like the dancing Israelis, the stadium destroyed and smoking. Like, you can play a lot. I always wondered why they got out that little symbol. It looked really weird. And then this one's one from the Olympics too, the all-seeing eye in the soldier you can trust. He doesn't have his gun, so maybe we can trust him for now. Then, of course, the British government backed out on their complaint to the European Court of Human Rights about wearing a cross. They don't want you to do that. 2 women stood up for that, and they got burned. Ugandan government squabbles while children die of a mysterious disease. Makes you nod your head. And I remember a friend of mine would always talk about, like, the people around, all the people in power, as bobbleheads. Everybody's a bobblehead. It's like we said at the beginning here with this, you know, the tipping point. People have firm beliefs, all the rest are bobbleheads. So if we build up the numbers of the firm beliefs, well, the bobbleheads will just bobble, because that's all they can do. It's a terrible disease. It's killed a lot of children. What's behind it, I'm not too sure, but this is really weird, because maybe all of our leaders, our congresses, our parliaments, our corporate people at lower levels, our media reporters, are all bobbleheads. But they get well paid. £5,000 probably just to sign a little paper, look the other way. That's not bad action. I got to work hard for that. Big meteor is coming our way, or asteroid. It's going to come in under the satellite level next year. NASA says it's going to miss, so it's going to be 24,000 kilometers, but it's like I've said many times before, it's kind of like God's firing a warning shot. So asteroid 2012 DA14 is going to come in under satellite level. So you might get a good light show. Might be something to see. They're also testing a nuclear weapon scenario in case they have to blow it up. And then that little baby shuttle X-37B has been up in the sky for over a year. Nobody knows what it's doing. Well, we knew what it was doing, because many times when it was up, it was when big weather events happened. Is that happening again? Very well. Could very well be. We're getting nervous here. Dick Cheney's outside the window with his big gun. He's getting angry. This was a nice picture. Show this picture. This was the light show on the South Pole when we had that big solar storm. Just absolutely amazing. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And it just shows you the power. This is where you get free energy, free electricity. It comes from the sun. You just tap into that. It's the ultimate hydro lines. It's wireless. Tesla proved it. You could get all this free energy, wireless. We wouldn't have to pay a dime. So we're running out of time. The meter's expired. The cab driver's packing up. I think we've done a bang-up job here tonight, like we do every night. We're trying to make a difference. We depend on you to help. It's a tag team thing. We need you, you need us. We do it together. Every false flag we stop, we get to breathe a little longer. No mushroom clouds, no wars, no false flags. We demand that now. That's a staple food. One day that'll be an election issue. False flags, the history of them. As you learn the conspiracies, like the Titanic, you'll be able to hold these people by the throat and demand real change. And not something new, some global gobbledygook. but a restoration of we the people, a restoration of the Bill of Rights, a restoration of the fundamentals, a restoration of the truth, of honesty, integrity. Won't that be something to wake up to? But you can do it. Change the channel. Change the channel to that channel. Watch Conspiracy Cafe. I'm your host, George Freund. We'll see you again, same that time, same that channel, next week. Thanks for coming out.
I'll never turn